My band, Microwave David and the Duke, started out in 1989. And we talked it together over there in Huntsville, started playing. And we hit it just at the right time. Probably the only time in my life, excuse me, that I was at the right place with the right product at the right time. People were ready to hear blues, thanks primarily to the success of Stevie Ray Vaughan, who had everybody excited about blues and blues guitar playing especially. So we walked into a bar over there. They just opened it up as a blues bar. I said, I didn't know we had a blues bar in Huntsville. I said, well, it's our first weekend. And they had a band in there that did not play blues. I just happened to know the guy managing it. We had been sharing rock stages at a place over there called the Plush Horse years before. And he said, are you playing blues now? I said, yeah, I just started a blues trio. He said, you mean like Stevie Ray's three guys? I said, yeah. I said, I can't play like Stevie Ray, but I mean, that's what we're doing. He said, well, you're just what we're looking for. Can you start next week? So I had to quit the band I was in. That was a 2-hour phone call. Got that all done. I called the guys up and said, hey, we're booked. And they were like, we only got 19 songs. Said there are going to be long versions of all of them. We're going to be playing them a long time. So we got booked, we got in there, and the first night we played there, they had a sign on an easel, a piece of the old poster board. You buy a poster board for a school project, you know, and it was written in magic mark, it said, blues, $2. That was the cover charge. We went and we played all night, and we did really good. The people were just crazy, ready for this stuff. They were just ready for what we were doing. When we came out and loaded out that night, the sign was crossed out and said, good blues, $3. So we got in a rage on one night. We got a raise in one night. So that raise what got us started. A couple years later, we started playing this Bo Diddley song. We liked Bo Diddley a lot, and we actually wound up being the backup band to him on a couple different occasions, which was an experience I won't go into here because it just takes too long to tell the story, but it was educational, to say the least. And one of the songs that we did, every time we played it, people would go crazy about it, and then they would come back later and say, hey, will you play that tonight? And I'd say, yeah, we played it twice already. We'll play it again, I just got here. So it's one of those kind of songs that people just wanted to hear. So in the meantime, a record company out of Memphis, putting out blues records, they were looking for another Stevie Ray to go out, right? That's what they wanted. Stevie had passed away, and everybody's looking for the next one, and I kept saying, there's not going to be a next Stevie Ray. There wasn't a next Jimi Hendrix either, right? I mean, you can't do what was done in that case. You got to do what you got, and we're lucky. So they were looking anyway, so they signed us up to make a record, and they hired Johnny Sandlin over in Decatur. And Johnny, of course, had recorded here at Fame all those years ago, and he had been a member of the Hourglass, the band that went right into the Allman Brothers. He played with Dwayne and Greg and was friends with them and all that stuff. And it makes some really great records already with Delbert McClinton and a bunch of other people. And we got lucky, and he said he would produce us. And I went to his studio, and his studio is lined up with gold and platinum records that he's been involved with. I'm going like that. I was nervous. We cut the band, and I said, I think we have a hit record in this one right here. I think this is a hit record. And he said, I think you're right. I think that's a hit song, but I don't think the band version is a hit record. I think I want to cut you with some studio musicians and try it out that way. So I said, okay. So I told the guys in the band, they were like, yeah. They want to be on the record. I said, well, if we're on the album, don't worry. So I came back in to cut it, and I walk in, and the two studio musicians who got playing with me are David Hood and Roger Hawkins from the Swampers. And boy, you talk about being intimidated. I mean, I was scared to death. I was scared to death. And I sat down, and I've been wasting these guys' time like they've never had it wasted. And I sat down, and I was nervous, and David Hood had this one place he sat in Johnny's studio right in front of the board. He had a tuner right here, he had a little amplifier down by his feet so he could feel the bass in his feet while he was playing it, plus his headphones. And he says, listen, you play the song the way you enjoy it. Our job is to make the part you enjoy go on tape real good. That's our job. You play it the way you enjoy it, we'll make it sound good on the tape. That's what we're supposed to do. Oh. Okay, so I went to the first take, and it was okay, and I came out there, and I'm sitting there, and we're listening to the playback, and David says, Man, I need to fix that. That wasn't good. That wasn't good. I've listened, sound perfect to me. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. Said, no, I can do that better than that. But they put me at ease, so I got in there with him and we started playing on it. So we cut the song, got on the album, sent the album to the label in Memphis. They hated it. There was no Stevie Ray Vaughan thing in there whatsoever. Bo Diddley, who wants Bo Diddley stuff? So they sat on it for 1 year. Did not release it. Johnny Sandman approached them about buying a record so we could put it out ourselves. They refused. It just sat there. And finally, after a year, they agreed to put it out, but they created a sub-label so that our record would not tarnish the reputation of their label. So they get this little label called Bluesworks Records. And we're the only release on it, and they put it out. That was in November of 1995. Right at the same time it came out, two things happened. The Beatles released this great big giant package everybody's been waiting on forever. Had all kinds of stuff in it. People, all the collectors have been waiting on, all the fans have been waiting on. And it was bringing people to the record stores like crazy. The other thing was, Best Buy opened their store in Huntsville at the same time. And I went to the record manager and I said, you sell a local product? And he said, well, I don't know why. I said, well, we're just releasing this one. And we might be able to move. We've got people to know us around. He said, do you have a fan base in town? And I said, yes, sir, we do. He said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. Give me 60 of them, and I'll put them on an end cap right here. The Beatles are right down here. People will be coming in to look at the Beatles thing, and we'll see if you can sell them. So he put them on the end cap. That was on a Thursday or a Friday, I forgot which. On Monday, he called me and said, bring me about 90 more of those. And I said, you sold the 60? Yeah, they went real fast. I need some more. So I got 90, and I called John and said, we need 90 more records. He said, what, for what? I said, for Best Buy. They sold out all the others. So we got 90 more. Then they sold all those. They wanted 120 the next time. So they kept doing that, kept doing that. In the meantime, somebody carried the record, unbeknownst to what, into a football stadium in Paris, France. Their professional level football, what we call soccer, right? This was their pro teams over there. 80,000 fans, expensive tickets, and people beating each other up in the stadium, right? That was what they did. And somebody, at a time, excuse me, a time when the team was slumping, somebody put our record on, and everybody sang along with it, and the team won the game. Now, all of us who live in the South know about what happens when your football team is losing, right? If something happens and your team wins the game out of a slump, whatever you did the day they won, you do it again, right? Same clothes, same food, get up at the same time, you know, all the superstition stuff. Well, because my home phone number was in the CD jacket, I got blown up with French answering machine messages, just like all of them. Bonjour, microwave the team, microwave. So I had a guy translate. He said, well, you have a hit record in Paris, France. They want you to come over and play in the stadium, but they cannot guarantee your safety. He said, well, that doesn't sound good. It sounds kind of a long drive, too. He said, well, that's what they're saying. I said, well, so I got somebody to straighten it out, and I called them back, collect. I called them collect. And I said, I don't think we can come over there. So they worked it out, and a guy worked out for us to come over and play. So we ended up with 4 tours of Europe in 1996 off this one record, this one song. Wow. Because they got released over there then, this old Bo Diddley song, right? And it was pretty amazing. We got over there, and the first thing we did, we get over there and they drive us all the way down to Provence, and we found out that we're the headline attraction at a country and western festival. And folks, French country and western is different than what we have over here. The band that was on before us was playing Oh Susanna. They were playing Oh Susanna like it was Free Bird. They were getting way more of that than Stephen Foster ever intended, I guarantee you, when he wrote Oh Susanna. So we got there and played our blues stuff, and they were looking at us like, let me play this song, and they all went crazy, and that was it. The next day, we drove up to the middle of France, and we opened for Iron Maiden, heavy metal band. And then we had to drive all the way across into Normandy and get on French national television. And we went in there dragging on amplifiers and stuff, and the director comes out, no. And we're like, we're going to lip sync? And folks, lip syncing is something you practice. You get with your record, you work it out so your mouth is moving at the same time as the words and all that. We had no practice. We went on French national television looking like we were lip-syncing. The biggest embarrassment of my public life. Then we got back home, and we're walking around after all this big celebrity stuff. We're walking around over there playing somewhere, I think in Gadsden. And that guy comes up and said, "Are you going to play some damn Skinner or not?" I said, "Yep, we're back home, fellas. We're back home." So there's the song. Thanks to Bo Diddley, thanks to Johnny Sanders, thanks to Roger Hawkins, David Hood, Scott Boyer, Kelvin Holly, all those guys are on this record. Well, that was better than all the rest of them. Maybe I'm just going too fast. Oh, then beep, beep. Beep, beep. That's what it was. I'm going too fast. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. That's good. Too bad the track's so fast now. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. do it.
Beep, beep. Beep, beep.
That was the best one yet. That was really good. I think we go with the beep beep.